The recording has begun.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular meeting for July 28th, 2026. I would like to officially call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, could you please give us a roll call?
Councilman Gutenberg,
Here.
Councilman McCormick,
Here.
Councilman Sampson,
Here.
Councilman Johnson,
Here.
Mayor James.
Here.
Madam Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And if you could all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Council, if you've had a moment to look at tonight's agenda, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Thank you very much. And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, any questions? Any comments? Sorry.
No.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Brings us to disclosure of a closed session that we held just an hour ago today on July 28th. In accordance with the Maryland Open Meetings Act, Annotated Code of Maryland, General Provisions Article Chapter 3-211, we are required to include specific information in the minutes when a public body meets in closed session. To ensure full compliance, we will attach the written statement that includes the reason for the closed meeting, the statutory authority permitting the closed session, a listing of topics discussed, the individuals present, and the action taken. This documentation will be made part of the public record to maintain transparency and meet the legal requirements of the Act. Next on the agenda is our consent agenda. So a consent agenda is designed to approve projects in a single motion that, while are very important, do not require council or staff discussion. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. And that's Councilman Gutenberg.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Sampson. Any discussion? Councilman McCormick?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Stevens, just real quick on resolution 2642, that's the water and sewer facilities, Macron, and 2646, general engineering services, CDM Smith, just for edification. I'm going to speak high level. Let me know where I go wrong, where I'm correct. So essentially piggybacking these contracts off of, in one case, Frederick County, in the other case, a different entity. That's for speed, correct? Like the goal here is to ensure that we're entering this contract correctly in a process that doesn't require you to do a separate RFP. That's why we're doing it this way, right?
That is exactly correct.
Okay, thank you. And that's just again for edification on my end. Thanks.
Any other comments?
One other, just because it was brought up, but my assumption is as well that with a contract like that, because we are piggybacking off of a larger entity that has potentially larger buying power, we're also potentially getting better rates.
Correct.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, there are multiple benefits to the town of our size by using cooperative contracts, is what they're called.
Yes.
Piggybacking is the colloquial term, but yes, that's exactly right on both counts.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor that has been properly seconded. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This brings us to our portion of public comment. Is there anyone that is wanting to speak tonight? If so, I ask that you state your name, whether you live within the incorporated town limits, and if you please limit your comments to 3 minutes, that would be appreciated. And make sure you have the mic on. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Turner. I live within the boundaries of La Plata. And I am speaking tonight to address 3 critical concerns regarding transparency, council conduct, and water management in our town. First, changes to the mayor's core function and authority are being pushed forward without any genuine effort to gauge community opinion or respect the democratic choice residents made at the ballot box. Well, when we vote for mayor, we elect a specific leader with specific mandate under our established structure. Stripping or altering those functions behind closed doors or without broad public engagement undermines the voters. Second, I want to address council conduct and election policy. Podcast, council members Gutenberg and Johnson decried moving the plated municipal elections to the general ballot, claiming it would infect our local politics with partisan hostility. Yet at a recent candidate forum, those same council members actively demonstrated that divide, not between Republican and Democrat, but deeper divides that affect this county. They openly supported a slate candidate while rudely talking and laughing through another candidate's presentation. They are not above the bitter divide, they are participating in it. Keeping our town elections isolated on a separate lonely ballot does not protect us from partisanship. It simply guarantees shamefully low voter turnout and suppresses community voices. Finally, regarding local water strategy, I reviewed the water conservation outline submitted to the planning department, and frankly, it falls short of real stewardship. Where's the active encouragement for residential rain barrels or drip irrigation systems? Why aren't we offering public workshops on these practical tools or educating homeowners on landscaping with drought-tolerant native plants? Water conservation shouldn't be an emergency measure triggered only when local reserves run low. Right now, this outline reads like a check-the-box exercise designed to justify importing water rather than implementing real proactive conservation here at home. La Plata deserves transparent governance, respectful representation, and actual long-term planning, not low turnout politics and superficial conservation plans. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening? Okay. Next is our National Night Out presentations. Do we have a representative from Kings Grant here? Okay, Councilman, I'm sorry, I skipped over you. We'll get you next. Councilman Gutenberg, could you please tell us what Kings Grant is doing? And then I will come back to you, Councilman.
Yes, so I don't have a
No.
note. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I called on him first. Sorry, I've got it.
Go
I've
ahead.
got it mixed up. You'll be in just a second.
Oh, I understand.
Sorry, Councilman McCormick.
Yeah, thank you. And I know that we may look alike, so I appreciate that. Okay, so we are celebrating National Night Out. Kings Grant put in for a grant through our town. So first, I want to recognize the staff and Lucinda back there for always doing a great job of making sure that this gets out there. And then secondly, I want to thank Kings Grant. I know that they have a long history of bringing vendors out and doing a really great job with their National Night Out. So this grant will just be a little piece, I'm sure, of helping make that a huge successful event once again. So, Madam Mayor, I'm sure you'll be there with it being your home neighborhood and all that, but really excited to see what Kings Grant does again here in 2026. And I want to thank everybody for putting in for this grant, Lucinda for facilitating, making sure this happens. Thank you.
All right.
Yes.
Councilman Gutenberg.
Thank you.
Sorry about
Thank
that.
you.
You have Washington Square?
That's okay. Yes. So yeah, Washington Square also is receiving a grant for the National Night Out. They were one of the stops. I couldn't make it to all of them last year, but looking forward to stopping by there again to see what they're doing and just visit with folks during the National Night Out.
I think they gave us a little heads up that it might be ice cream, but I'm not
Oh,
quite
that's
sure.
You're right.
Councilman Sampson, who do you have? And is there a representative from, was there a representative from Washington Square? Oh, well, come on down, sweetie. Come on. That's all right. And go ahead. Now you know that you're going to have to speak, right? Well, we're going to give you the mic to speak. All right, were we right? Is it ice cream? Are you doing, okay. Spring calls and book your float. All right, well, we look forward to seeing the, Thank you. Thank you all for participating. We look forward to coming through. Paul? This is what happens when we haven't done a meeting in a month.
Yes.
Jeez.
All right. Thank you. We will see you there. Good to see you. Is there a representative from?
La Plata Church of Christ.
All right.
Oh,
So go ahead.
So first, I'd like to thank La Plata Church of Christ. I know they are very actively involved and always are working for the benefit of the community and trying to bring people together. And so I want to personally thank you. And you are a credit to this community. I will bring it.
All right. So tell us what you are going to be doing for National Night Out.
Well, every person is here. We all have met here. He couldn't make it tonight, so we going in. We're planning maybe a movie, so to speak. Some popcorn and some other things out in front of our building. And some other goodies, and I don't know what else we're all got planned, but we're planning something of that nature. People can come by, take in a movie and enjoy it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for applying for the grant.
Thank you.
All right. And is there a representative from Clark's Run? All right, Councilman Johnson?
Yes, so Tuesday, August 4th is National Night Out, and we had a grant to present to Clark's Run community for the continued support in uniting our community and law enforcement across the town.
Thank you very much. So it should be a very busy few hours on August 4th. It's always so great coming into the neighborhoods, and it is all about community policing. So we will have our local police as well as the sheriffs that will be visiting many neighborhoods on that night. It does become a whirlwind. So I hope to see you all out there. Thank you very much. All right, next on our agenda is board and commission bylaws. Mr. Stevens.
All right, council, good evening. We've got a number of meaty topics that we're going to discuss tonight. We're going to start with continuation of a conversation that started in December, carried over into January. We did some training for boards and commissions volunteers. And at the time, we told you that staff was working on some model bylaws to put some structure and some standardization around our boards and commissions to really help guide and focus our volunteers that are coming forward, that want to contribute and be a part of the town and their community and giving back in a meaningful way. We felt like the town owed them a little bit more structure than they were getting. So we started with the training in January. And now we're here before you, and you might notice this agenda summary in your packet's a little bit different. There's a part 1 and a part 2. And so part 1 is something that we're going to ask you to take legislative action on later in this meeting via a resolution, and that will be the adoption of the bylaws themselves. And in your packet, you have 9 discrete sets of bylaws. They're all very, very similar, with the exception of the foundational document that formed those bylaws. That's where really the changes come in. Otherwise, they're very, very similar. So you'll have those, and then later in the meeting, you'll have a resolution to consider those. Part 2 of your staff report this evening is a little bit different. If you recall, in May, Town Council adopted a resolution directing the town manager and the staff to develop a formal standardized process for recruiting and interviewing candidates for appointments to town boards. So as I was putting this agenda item together, it didn't make sense to do these separately because it's really one conversation. So it looks a little bit different, but I think it's going to work out. We'll talk about everything here, and then later in the meeting, when you take legislation, it will only be on the bylaws. As far as the standard operating procedures, we're presenting those to you for your feedback. But as an operating procedure, that's something the staff will oversee and implement and orchestrate. But you absolutely need to see what that is and provide feedback to me if there's something in there that you don't like. So with that, I'll jump right into your staff report. As I've already alluded to, the town of La Plata has historically operated its advisory boards and commissions without a unified set of governing bylaws. While enabling legislation, ordinances, and resolutions establish each body and define its basic composition and authority, the operational rules governing meetings, voting, officers' duties, quorum, member conduct, and related matters have varied across bodies or have not been codified at all. So to address that gap, we've developed a model bylaws framework applicable to all 9 town boards and commissions. The model establishes consistent standards across all bodies while accommodating the unique statutory, regulatory, and compositional requirements of each. The 9 individual sets of bylaws tailored from the model to each body are presented for your consideration this evening, and those are the Board of Appeals, the Board of Supervisor of Elections, the Design Review Board, the Ethics Commission, the Finance Committee, the Historic Preservation Commission, the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, the Planning Commission, and the Sustainability Advisory Committee. Each set of bylaws addresses the name and purpose, the membership composition, qualifications, terms, training, vacancies, attendance, and removal, officer roles and elections, meeting procedures, voting and motions, public participation and conflicts of interest, reporting requirements, subcommittee formation, and the amendment and adoption process. Bylaws become effective upon adoption by town council resolution, and once adopted, each board or commission will operate its respective bylaws, which may be amended by the majority of vote, subject to this council's approval. Fiscal impact. The adoption of the bylaws carries no direct fiscal impact. Staff time to develop and final the 9 individual sets of bylaws was absorbed within existing departmental operations. Your strategic plan alignment as well as your sustainability considerations are in your packet, and your staff recommended action for part 1, and this will be the resolution you'll see later, is to adopt resolution 26-41, approving the bylaws for each of the town's 9 boards and commissions as presented, effected upon adoption. And then in part 2, as I already stated, in May of 26, Town Council adopted resolution 26-33, directing the town manager to develop a formal standardized process for recruiting and interviewing candidates for appointments to town boards, commissions, and committees. In response, staff developed a standard operating procedure, or SOP Admin 001, which is the boards and commissions and committees interview and selection process. The SOP establishes the following key elements of the appointment process: a continuous rolling online application process through the town's Form Center platform with quarterly interview cycles in March, June, September, and December of each year. Preparation of standardized applicant data sheets by the town clerk for distribution to council via the AMM platform in a confidential mode. Structured in-person interview sessions conducted in closed session pursuant to the Maryland Open Meetings Act, and that would be Section 3-305B1I, with no more than 15 minutes per applicant and a uniform question set developed by staff. Council deliberation in a closed session followed by formal appointment action in an open session at a meeting on the same date following the closed session. And off-cycle sessions authorized by the town manager when a regulatory body faces a quorum emergency. As an administrative SOP issued under the town manager's authority, the document doesn't require formal council adoption, but it is presented here to invite feedback before it takes effect. Fiscal impact, there is no direct fiscal impact. The process is administered using existing staff resources in the town's current AMM and Form Center platforms. The strategic plan alignment as well as your sustainability considerations are in your packet. And your recommended action on this item this evening is there's no formal council action required on the interview and selection SOP, but staff welcomes any feedback or questions the council may have regarding the process before the first quarterly interview session is conducted in September. And right now that would be on your September 22nd meeting. With that, we'll pause and staff is prepared to answer questions.
All right, Councilman Gutenberg, do you have any questions?
Yeah, sure. First on the procedure for interviews, it looks good to me, Mr. Stevens, and I'm confident that as we go through the first iteration of it, if we find that there's things we need to modify, I'm sure we as a group can do that and adapt accordingly. On the bylaws, I'm really happy and proud that we are in in the position we're in now with it, looking back on traveling over the past year or so, getting to this point. Because when I think back on it, what we have that we didn't have just over a year ago now is we have bylaws for all the committees and boards. And that's important because some of them didn't have rules of procedure. And so that was causing some issues of kind of navigating some issues, on them. And so the bylaws, where a rule of procedure on one of those boards or commissions doesn't exist, the bylaws are effectively that layer. Where a rule of procedure already exists, what I like about these bylaws is, as an example, for the Planning Commission, as an example, has a very detailed rule of procedure. The bylaws are nice because they kind of lay over that nice and neat, and in very plain English say, this is how we operate. And it's pretty easy to understand. I could see a new first-time commission member coming on and being able to absorb that and go, oh, this isn't as intimidating as the rule of procedure might look, because that takes a little getting used to. But it's the rule of procedure is still there. And it just has a higher level of detail than the bylaws do. And I think the other thing, another document that is really good and useful for how we conduct ourselves on boards and commissions is our new Code of Civility. Right, it all pairs together with this, and then the training program, all of those things that you just did the first iteration of, and that now we have board and commission members receive that when they come in new. I think all of these things paired together offer us a really good foundational set of documents, practices, and intent being communicated to people who are participating in the democratic process here in our boards and commissions. And they are as good, though, as the people that operate them, right? So I know that having them, the tension point I saw without them is it's hard to know if you're conducting debate back and forth. Well, what is the right way I can assert something that I think is happening here? And I think this gives that framework so that people who are participating in democratic processes here in their local government have those things now, and we didn't have them a year ago. And I'm really happy about that, and I'm really looking forward to supporting this later tonight.
Councilman McCormick.
Yeah, thank you for this, Mr. Stevens. A couple quick questions for you. So I'm going to go to first the second part of this. Okay, so talking about the appointment to a board. Walk me through it. I'm going to sand down the edges very briefly. There are two types of boards that I see here. One is one that has a liaison from the council on it, and one is a board that does not have a liaison for the council. So the two examples I'll give you. First, you have the Historic Preservation Committee, which I sit on, and then you have the Finance Committee, which no member, to include the mayor, sits on. If the Finance Committee wanted to put somebody forward, for example, Joe Smith down the road decides that he wants to join the Finance Committee, is the Finance Committee actively recruiting? Are you actively recruiting? Is this an HR effort? Are they reaching out to us directly? What does that look like for a board that does not have a liaison on it?
So we are actively recruiting all the time for all boards.
Okay.
That's the short answer.
Sure.
Okay, and we use all the tools at our disposal that the town has to conduct outreach to our residents. So we use our website, we use Facebook, we use this forum. We do everything we can to try and solicit interest. So we're constantly recruiting for any vacancy across all 9 of our boards and commissions, regardless of whether there's an ex officio appointed or not.
Okay, I'm Joe Smith. I want to join the Finance Committee. Who do I reach out to make sure that the process properly starts?
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna look to Kelly and have her unmute there and go ahead. So we just pick it up as if you're, walk through the process of a resident applying.
There's an application on our website, and the website is provided in the SOP. The exact URL is on there. We also include that on our social media posts and everything we put out so that people can find it easily.
Okay.
If they can't find it, they can call me.
Sure.
Or email me, contact me in any way, come into town hall if they want. I can help them fill out the application. The application, when you hit submit, goes into our tracker inside our webpage. So that information does not get lost in email ever.
Great.
An automatic notification goes out to legislative services We contact the applicant, talk to them about how the process works, when the next interviews will be, make sure that they're going to be available during that time frame, which during a closed session starting at 5 p.m. before a regular session, the second meeting of that quarter. After that, it comes, we provide that information, their application data, obviously stripped of the personal information.
Sure.
To town council and in confidential attachment, and then conduct the interviews.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So then just to clarify, and it sounds like the answer was already provided to this, but we talked a lot about the intent. I personally think the intent was clear. Obviously, you came with a great product here, so thank you for that. There is no point in the process where Joe Smith puts in that application online or reaches out to you directly, Director Phipps, that there is a stoppage from that person's information being provided to the council. And what I mean by that is a committee cannot look at somebody who's trying to get a seat and stop them from pursuing that seat.
I think I'm going to answer that yes, but with a caveat.
Okay.
So staff, there is discretion on staff where if someone has applied and they don't meet the base requirement,
Understood. Yep.
we will not forward that to council.
Got it.
But any applicant for any board, it's not stopped at the board or commission level. Intake is coming through staff, and that will all go forward to council, assuming that they meet the basic requirements to serve on that board.
Understood. So Joe Smith lives in the town, meets all the requirements. That person puts their application in. They will come before the council.
That is correct.
Perfect. Thank you. And then the final question for you, section 2, subsection 5, town body subject to this SOP. There's a note section. Okay. So like, for example, Board of Appeals, you have resident requirements applies. I'm assuming that has already been verified. There are some sections that have a note that says verify eligibility requirements. Is that an open note that the staff is still doing work on, or did that have a different meaning?
No, that's a note to us. So again, this is
Understood.
a note to us that in this case, for example, the Sustainability Advisory Commission, so the note says the town code governs, we need to verify eligibility requirements.
Okay.
So that's exactly what we were just talking
Got it. Okay. And then I'm assuming the verify eligibility requirements right now, and I did a surface level dive into each of the bylaws, but that's going to be location, some sort of certification if it's a specialty board. That's what we're talking about in that nature.
There are certain boards that have requirements for the
Perfect.
finance committee, for example, has
Okay.
very specific requirements for
Yeah,
their
I think it's like
membership.
one business owner, one
Yep.
certain
So
certification
within the
background.
town
Okay,
limits,
great.
outside the town limits, historic preservation has some requirements on it. Design review board has some requirements on it.
Fantastic. And then I'll just make a general comment about the bylaws. I agree with what Councilman Gutenberg said. Thank you for scaffolding all these different initiatives. I think you're doing a great job, Mr. Stevens, Ms. Minor, of taking direction from the council and then just making this come to fruition here, right? So the overall intent here is that, again, and I think Councilman Johnson put it best, these committees are a reflection of the elected body, right? And again, we take feedback and all that, but ultimately at the end of the day, these committees should be enacting the will of the town, and the will of the town is determined by the direction that this council gives. So I think this does a really good job of marrying and pairing that together. So thank you for this product.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilman Sampson.
Yes, I want to say excellent job to everybody and staff, Director Phipps, everybody. I thought it was an excellent product, and I look forward to supporting it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Johnson.
Yes, thanks for the work that was done. Just one question regarding the SOP. That covers appointments and reappointments, correct?
Correct.
Okay, very well. Thank you.
All right. So going through all the bylaws, that was a lot of work, and thank you very much for doing that. And I love that these boards are all voluntary. So it is nice to have an outline of what is expected, expectations and conduct. So thank you for that. My question for you is now that if they are adopted, how do we ensure that every sitting member right now who has been serving acknowledges receipt of it? Is there, I know when we buy a house in an HOA, we have to sign with the realtor saying we have received the documents. I know that they will receive them. Is there some type of acknowledgement that they have received that so that there's not a, well, I didn't know?
Well, Mayor, you have officially stumped me. We did not think about getting an acknowledgement form. We
Okay.
can certainly do that. But it was our plan, obviously, we were going to send these out if adopted to all of our boards and commissions members. We can quickly generate some form of acknowledgement and ask them to sign that they've received it. That's certainly something we can do if that's council's direction. I'm happy to do that. I'm not sure that it's a requirement though. And I think, I guess I'm hesitating because I'm trying to imagine if I'm a volunteer on a board or commission, I've been volunteering my time for X number of years, and now here are these new bylaws and I've got to sign acknowledging I'm going to comply. That might rub me the wrong way depending on my temperament at the moment. So
Not comply in receipt. There's acknowledging, because a lot of our things go to spam, so, or may go to spam, that they receive them. That's all.
we can certainly do that.
Okay, good. And the second thing is, so I served several years on one of the boards well before I served as mayor, and I really had no idea when my term was up. And so, I mean, I think it's because we didn't have a lot of volunteers. They just wanted to make sure that you rolled over on that. With this new SOP, it says for new appointees as well as reappointees. So how are we informing the those that their commissions are coming up? And then do they reapply? Is there a different application for them? Is it the same one? Because there's obviously an application on file for them when they first applied, or I would assume so. So is there a different form for them they want to continue and then they come in front of council for an interview?
So I'll answer your questions, I think in the order they came out. So in Appendix C of the SOP actually has a screenshot of the dashboard that we'll be using. So the staff liaison and our legislative office will be monitoring that. And so in the quarter prior to a member's term expiring, we will notify that member and say, hey, just hypothetically, your term is going to expire in November. So if you choose to reapply for this board or commission, here's the link. Please reapply and we'll get you scheduled for an interview in that September meeting. Because otherwise we would create a gap because the next interview process wouldn't be till December. So we want to be proactive. We want to notify outgoing members or members with terms that are expiring the quarter prior. And then to directly answer your question, there is no separate form. It will be this form. They will fill it out. Everybody, whether it's a reappointment or a first-time application, will all go through the same process. So if I've been on a board or commission and I've been there for 2 terms and there's no term limits and I choose to do a third, I'm still going to apply. I will still come in and meet with council, and council will always have the ability to seat that body. And this really speaks to what Councilor McCormick was just talking about, because they are an extension of the legislative body that is this council. And so you always have that ability.
Thank you. All right. So I'm looking for a consensus to move this forward. Do you have a rebuttal or something else?
There's no rebuttal. Just more comments, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Question, thank you. Obviously, yes, the SOP is how you want to administratively operate the policy. Commenting on the comment that the mayor made about the acknowledging or whatever, I would imagine the most logistical way would be at the next meeting upon adoption from council will probably be the easiest way versus having members sign a bylaw agreement. I don't think that was the intent when that conversation came about. It's like necessarily saying you agree with it or not.
Right.
They have the ability to amend it in the board and then bring it back before council. But obviously as an SOP, I just thinking since the comment was made, the most logistical way would be at the next immediate meeting following adoption, I would imagine.
And we'll sort out how, I think what I'm hearing is that we just want some kind of positive attribution from every member that they are aware that there are new bylaws.
Right, that's
So,
exactly
yeah,
right.
figure it
And
out.
The only problem I think that would be having it at their next meeting is that not everybody shows up to the meeting because of, vacations or whatnot. So just to make sure that this isn't sprung upon them. So if someone acts out of not in accordance with the bylaws, the excuses, I didn't know we had these now. I don't want that, not acknowledging, just receipt.
Understood.
Yeah, if I may, so I understand, I think the intent of what this discussion is around. However, I think I would be in the category of like, what is the utility of the signed piece of paper that now some poor soul has to track for the next 2 years that the person is on a committee? Is if they misbehave by someone else's standard, that then we're going to be asked to produce the document, we're going to show it to them and say, see, you signed this thing? I don't see the utility of having someone sign it. I think the process is that a quorum of the board or committee or commission will adopt as a quorum. Nobody makes any decision as an individual. As a group, they adopt these bylaws. If you're a member who's not there, you would be seeing this in the minutes. You're a participating member. And if you're acting outside of the bylaws, the expectation in the democratic process is that our peers on the board will say, hey, I would like to remind you that this is our bylaw. This is how this would work. And it's a self-correcting thing. If as individuals, we rise to our responsibility of speaking up when we see those kinds of things happening. And that's really what I would like to see as the ultimate outcome of like all of this documentation that we've produced to help people participate in these things, is that it's the actions that come from it, not that we're creating another piece of paper that's tracked by town hall.
Understood, but we are now changing a process that they have been sitting under one process that they have been abiding by. And I'm not saying anybody is not. And now you're introducing something else to them. The excuse that I didn't know we changed it would be a very valid excuse,
Yeah.
because they came under one set of rules, and now our staff has done a fantastic job of updating and tweaking. They need to acknowledge that, yeah, okay, there are some changes. Not saying they agree, not saying they disagree, but you're changing the rules mid-game to those sitting down. And when we interview people for these voluntary positions on the board, right then and there should be given the draft of, or not draft, the actual bylaws.
Mm.
That should be part of their package, but changing the rules mid-game and not having them know that, the body, obviously, the boards, the commissions, and the committees can regulate that, but we are changing the rules. Moving forward, when we interview someone or they're coming in for a reappointment, when we appoint or reappoint, they should be given that package.
So my response to that is that I disagree with the initial precept in this way. Several of our boards and commissions don't have a rule of procedure today. This is not a change of rules. This is just a codifying of the expectation. In addition to that, the bylaws don't materially change any of the rules of procedures. So they're not a change as much as they are a simplified restatement in that way. And what I would like to see us do in order to achieve, I think, the same outcome you're going for, is be better about when you go to the board and commission website, that's where the rule of procedures, the bylaws, and the specifics, even the code of civility, the training materials should all be easy. If you just go there, it's easy. 3 documents, 3 PDFs you can pull down, easily referenceable by everybody. And that's where I think we're in alignment, is we want everyone to have access to it. And all I'm suggesting is that let's not make another bureaucratic piece of a process that has to have somebody keep a manila folder somewhere with a piece of paper with a.
It can
with
be
a signature.
electronically signed,
Sure.
but to your point, when you said that there aren't bylaws for some of the committees, then we're presenting bylaws to them. that should be an acknowledgement that a process has been introduced, has been changed, that here they are. I do like the idea of having them on the website so that even if it's a e-signature initial saying, hey, gotcha. And I believe it's going to fall upon the chair of the board, committee, or commission to make sure that it is stated bylaws have been adopted by the council, and we are responsible for making sure that we are aware of that. But I think an acknowledgement, otherwise, what good is all the hard work that you all have done? All right, so we have a piece of legislation that will be seen later on if there is a consensus after this great conversation. So thank you for that. I'm looking for a consensus to move this forward. Councilman Gutenberg,
Yes.
Councilman McCormick,
Yes.
Councilman Sampson,
Yes.
Councilman Johnson, and I am a yes as well, and we'll see it in just a little bit. All right, next on the agenda is sidewalks and curb maintenance. Thank you, Director Phipps.
Come on up, Wilson. All right, council. For this topic, I want to start this conversation by being really clear. We are not seeking any direction at all from you tonight, at all. Okay, because I think this is a very weighty topic. And I think that we, staff, owes you the opportunity to have a conversation, present the topic, give you 2 full weeks to go out, talk to your constituents, talk to your residents, think about it, read the 2 different drafts that are included in your packet. And then we'll come back during your August 11th meeting. And at that point, then staff will be looking for direction. Okay. But for tonight, this is really just the introduction of the topic about sidewalk maintenance policies and whether it's a landowner obligation or a town obligation and responsibility to maintain those. So by way of background, your town code, section 170-16, amended in April 9th of 1985, places the duty and obligation to maintain sidewalks abutting private property squarely on the abutting property owner. Under that provision, abutting owners are responsible for clearing vegetation, snow removal within 48 hours of snowfall, and structural repairs. In the event an owner fails to make structural repairs, the code authorizes the town to perform the work and assess all or a portion of the costs against the adjacent property. Despite this clear statutory framework, the town has not enforced code section 170-16 for at least the past decade and has instead performed sidewalk maintenance townwide as a matter of practice. This practice has been driven in part by public safety considerations. Uneven or deteriorating sidewalks present trip and fall hazards, and relying on individual property owners to respond in a timely manner creates the risk of conditions going unaddressed. By assuming maintenance responsibility, the town has been able to respond to hazardous conditions more consistently and on its own schedule. This informal arrangement has evolved without a formal policy decision by the town council. Despite the lack of a formal policy decision, there is currently a budget line item of $80,000 for sidewalk maintenance in the FY27 budget. The practical gap between code language and operational practice presents risk in several areas. Potential liability if a property owner or a member of the public were to rely on one understanding or the other, inequity among property owners depending on location, and uncertainty for staff regarding expectations and resource allocation. Staff brings this matter to council as a policy direction item to resolve the ambiguity and align the town's code, budget, and operations. Fiscal impact. Sidewalk maintenance has been separately budgeted in FY27 with a line item of $80,000. The fiscal implications of this policy are material and differ significantly between the 2 options under consideration. Option 1, enforce existing code. That would place the responsibility on the landowner. That's the way the code is written now. That would have minimal direct cost to the town for routine maintenance. The town would retain authority to perform emergency or structural repairs and assess cost to the property owner. It may require staff time for inspection, notice, and enforcement activities. And transition to enforcement will require a public notice period and may generate constituent inquiries. Option 2, where we amend the code to formalize the town's responsibility to take on sidewalk maintenance, would require the establishment of a more sophisticated sidewalk maintenance budget to be developed through the normal budget process. Staff would need to inventory all town sidewalks, estimate all annual maintenance costs, and propose appropriate funding, operating budget, capital improvement plan, or a combination of both. And long-term infrastructure costs, structural repair and replacement could be significant depending on the condition of the sidewalk network. Staff does not currently have a reliable estimate of annual sidewalk maintenance costs townwide, and should council direct option 2, we will begin developing that cost estimate for the next budget cycle, which is going to start in December, right? Even though, yes, we are in month 1 of the FY27 budget, the next budget cycle will kick off in December. And since this was written and tonight, the staff is working and the town is contracting to have a survey of all of our sidewalks conducted. So we are developing data on the condition of all the sidewalks throughout the town. And I think that's going to be important regardless of which policy option you choose. Because on the one hand, if we are going to require landowner responsibility, we still need to identify where there are bona fide public safety hazards. And in both the draft policies, you'll notice something that we don't have now in our code, and those are quantifiable metrics to define a public safety hazard versus an ugly crack. Okay, because they're very, very different. An ugly crack in a sidewalk, I still get a call or a complaint about an ugly crack. I will often be told it's a public safety hazard and I need to come out there and fix it. We don't have quantifiable metrics. Both the policies that you have to consider put quantifiable standards in there so that we staff can objectively assess sidewalk condition and determine, is it a cosmetic issue or is it a true public safety hazard? So we are undergoing a process to have all the town sidewalks surveyed, and depending on the length of that process, ideally that will inform the budget cycle regardless of what policy decision you make during your August 11th meeting. Strategic plan alignment. The item aligns with multiple goals in the town's 2022 strategic plan. Goal number 1, good governance. Resolving the conflict between code language and operational practice upholds the town's commitment to transparent, fair, and consistent decision-making. Goal 2, operational excellence. Establishing a clear policy allows staff to allocate resources appropriately and plan for long-term maintenance needs. And goal 4, community identity. Sidewalk condition directly affects walkability and the pedestrian environment, which the strategic plan identifies as a priority for connecting the downtown core to neighborhoods and commercial centers. And finally, goal number 5, public service readiness. Formalizing responsibility for sidewalk infrastructure supports long-term infrastructure planning and capital budgeting. In your agenda packet, you have sustainability and ADA considerations. And ADA considerations on this one, part of the sidewalk survey we're doing will also include the detection barriers, the bumps that you see and the ADA ramps. Because we also know that our sidewalks in many parts of the town are not ADA compliant. So as a part of the survey, we will be identifying all of those areas as well. So your recommended action, again, this evening is we're not looking for any direction tonight. Tonight, we're planting the seed. Hopefully, council can have a conversation. Wilson and I will do our best to answer questions or take questions and come back with answers on your August 11th meeting. You have 2 different policies in your packet that you can begin reviewing and like I said, talking to your constituents, reaching out to residents and really thinking this over, because this is going to have an impact. If council says, Chuck, I want you to enforce the code as written, that's going to send shockwaves to our community because they are used to the town maintaining our sidewalks. Okay. If this council says, no, we want to shift away from that, then we need to know that, because now I need to program that into our budget at a program level. And that's something that we don't have. We've been piecemealing it. If you look at the last 3, 4, or 5 years of budgets, that number's gone up incrementally, that line item for sidewalk maintenance, but there's no science behind it. So we're going to want to formalize this. We're going to want to clearly dedicate, whether it's a percentage of, it's 1 penny of the tax rate is going to be dedicated to sidewalks, or it's going to be a dollar amount that we set aside for sidewalk maintenance and it increases year over year, whatever it is. I want to be able to come back to you in the budget cycle and say, okay, here's how we're going to address sidewalk maintenance long-term based on your policy decision. So I'll stop there and open up for questions from council.
All right, I'm going to start with Councilman Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. A few questions and maybe some comments, and if you don't have them tonight, August 11th would be a perfect time to have them. So I'm going to go with the budget because I guess, it wasn't a budget, and I guess technically we approved it, but I'm going to go with the mindset that the $80,000 would have been approved for, a public sidewalk that, the town's responsible for, just for this conversation. When did the practice, I know I think you said 5 or 6 budgets ago, I didn't deep dive it, the practice of town choosing not to, go against the town code with repairing the sidewalks, like that's just
It's, I've talked to Michelle, who's been here for 30+ years, and I've talked to staff. I've looked through everything I can find to try and find out exactly when the town decided not to apply its code. And I got back at least a decade and I stopped because this is just a matter of practice. That's how the town's been doing it.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's fine. I think everything has a cost associated with it, right? Something got to give, somebody got to pay for it. So I think the science fair project that you're doing would be very educational to both sides of the conversation, our residents and to council. I think when I had a conversation online over the last couple of weeks. I attended a HOA meeting. And I think the sidewalks are important in terms of public safety. It's just a matter of who's responsible for it. This comment, I think what I heard or when I'm listening to some of the comments was also about like snow removal on sidewalks. And I know that's not part of this conversation, but where I'm getting at is depending on how council decides to go, what do a snow removal program look like or more diligent program look like in our elder communities where, the strength or the ability is not necessarily there to properly clear their roads or sidewalks. Obviously that will require money and people also. But I think there's a couple positions to this conversation that's going to unfold over the couple coming months that we're going to get the data to make a decision on. I think my initial conversation is the easy answer is always have your government do it. But the practical answer is who's going to pay for it. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'm curious about what that true cost would be and how it will be phased in over, the years to come. So
If I can, Madam Mayor, respond to that. So I do not want to be alarmist in any way, and I hope that I'm not conveying that. If the town says we want to formalize this and the town take responsibility, we'll program it into the budget and we'll make it clear and we'll go through the budget process and I'll tell you where we're getting the money and how we're going to get it. And also when you read those draft policies, I think they're written in such a way as to acknowledge that we're going to have more ask than we have money to do. That's why those quantifiable metrics are really important. What's a public safety health hazard? Okay, that's number 1 on our list. We're going to get it done. Other things might push to the bottom. And so depending on funding availability, we may very well have sidewalks that go unmaintained because they're not a public safety hazard. Okay, they haven't risen to that level yet. So I've tried to build that in, understanding the reality of somebody's going to have to pay for this. Okay, so I don't want to be alarmist. I'm not trying to say, oh, this is going to cost money and it's going to bankrupt the town and the budget. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Okay, we're just and so when we come back on the 11th, I'm not going to have data for you about expected costs. I'm not. We're not going to have it. It's not going to be ready. Okay, but I don't think you need that to make the policy decision. You can make the policy decision and tell me to go figure it out. We'll figure it out and we'll work through it in the budget process and you will understand exactly where we're going to get that money and how we're going to program and how it's going to increase year over year. And what's lacking right now that the staff desperately needs is the ability when a resident calls and says, my sidewalk is this, that, the other, I have nothing to fall back on to say, okay, our budget is this. I have this many projects in front of you. It doesn't meet the threshold of a public safety hazard, so it's not going to jump the line and get in front of the queue. So we're working on it, right? I don't have that. It's just hard right now because when I get a call about a sidewalk, I frankly call Wilson and say, can we get to this? Do we have staff? Do we have the money? Do we have the time? Can we get out there? Can we put this on the list? That's not a way to run a railroad, and we don't want to run this town like that.
Thank you.
Councilman Sampson.
Yes, my immediate reaction is, that some kind of hybrid between the two options from a policy standpoint should take place. In other words, what we have is a past practice that's been implemented with expectations. So my immediate thought would be we would notify the townspeople that, hey, we have this practice. However, in times of budget constraints, needed budget cuts, if something was to come up, we will move to enforce this. So in other words, we maintain the sidewalks, but we educate the public that, hey, this is something that we will do a rescission on if times get tough with our budget. And that while we're able to do it now, we develop these processes and methods that you're talking about. That to me would be a prudent course, so that you have time to educate the townspeople. You're not committing, you're not changing anything in policy. We always retain the right to enforce the code, but we're giving people time and awareness that we will do that if we have no other choice. If we have no other choice, we will implement this to save the town money, so, and what I'm thinking of, and not to be over dramatic, but like, if for some reason things got really bad, we could say, okay, instead of, deleting a position or not filling the position, here we have, right now, we know this, we've educated townspeople, we have this right here, we will cut back on this. So we have a certain line items within the budget that we know when times get tough, we will automatically go down that line. And those items that need to be made public or educate the public. So that was my immediate gut reaction. I think, making somebody pay for something that we haven't done in years, I think you said 10 years or somewhere around there. Number one. Number two, I think it could be a burden to, when I used to live in St. Louis, I had to repair the sidewalk, and that was like, I don't want to say the number to, like I said, cause alarm, but it was, 6 figures, and I had to come out my pocket for it. And so, depending on what it is, sidewalk damage because the pipe underneath the bus, and just going through that myself, then you're talking about where's the property line, where's the city's line, where's your line, who's responsible if the pipe busts, under the sidewalk, but there's all kind of things like you're saying. And so my thing would be, my gut reaction is get those metrics in place, get everything ready, have it as a line item, educate the town population now. We continue to bear the cost as we can now, but with the understanding and the education that, hey, if times get tough, we will do this. We've always had the right. So I would be hesitant about taking away our ability to do that if future budgets got tight. That would be my thought. I think it's almost like you're handicapped, but I'm also hesitant about putting the cost on the residents that they haven't had to take on. And like you said, I also think, which is my second thought, is that if we were to enforce the code, rapidly or suddenly next year or two, the second and third order effects of that. So like you said, we would have to prioritize that. Who's not, and this is outside of the lane of council, but just my thought is that, then do we have to hire somebody else to do that? Because that's a job in and of itself to be maintaining that. Who's going out there? Do we have the resources? Like you said, what's a priority? If you got 2 priorities, 3 priorities at one time, sort of like Councilman Johnson said, what about when snow happens, pipes contract, sidewalks crack? So that's my immediate gut reaction is that. I would prefer some kind of hybrid, but I would not want to take away our ability to enforce it for budgetary purposes if we had to, because that's something that we could identify, or, we don't have to impact a staff member or something. That's the money that we would have right there. So that's my immediate reaction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman McCormick?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for presenting this. And I want to acknowledge the folks in the back there that have brought this up at HOA meetings and emails and phone calls. Thank you very much for being here to listen to this. Yeah, I think you touched on it, Mr. Stevens. This is a policy decision that ultimately falls with the five of us. We're gonna have to make a decision, and I'm glad to see in your recommendation that you did not give one action or the other. You just simply stated this is the outcome of one, this is the outcome of the other, and I think that's a for this. Let me start with some questions and I'll get into what I think is the root of this, which is spirit versus letter of the law, right? So first question I have for you is, let's say we adopt the policy in which the town is going to take ownership of the sidewalks, just for an example. And I know Councilman Johnson talked about it, Councilman Sampson just brought it up, but maybe I didn't hear, and I just want to get clarity here. We are talking about maintenance in so far as cracks, breaks, safety issues that meet those requirements and KPIs, key performance indicators, that you're going to define through a new, I guess you would say, policy or SOP, correct? Or we would give to you.
Correct. They're in the
Okay.
draft policy. So there's standards that are in both of the draft policies that talk about, let me see if I can just find one real quick here. So sidewalk deficiency criteria, vertical offset surfaces of 1 inch or greater. That's a quantifiable standard. We
Got
can measure that.
And let me, this might even be an easier question for you to answer. And the reason I'm asking this is I want to talk specifically about debris or snow. That is not addressed in this policy. Debris and snow is still homeowner.
Correct.
Okay.
Those remain unchanged with either policy decision.
Okay. Status quo today, we don't clear off the sidewalks in Kings Grant, for example, when it comes to snowfall, correct? That's the responsibility of whatever HOA setup they have or the actual homeowner.
That is correct.
Okay, so then this is where I think this gets really interesting. I think that we have metrics that probably can give us a clear picture as to what do we expect to spend. So let me now go to status quo today. Okay, so status quo today is somebody calls either Wilson directly, you directly, might even reach out to one of the council members or mayor directly, know somebody on staff, whatever it ends up being. Or better yet, and hopefully they go through the resident, right? So those are kind of the two ways that we're going to get that information. How do we today determine, yep, I go to Gutenberg Lane and I'm going to fix that crack, or nope, I'm not going to fix that crack? What do we do today to determine that?
Okay. I'll let Wilson chime in here.
What we do today, we go out and look at it and see if there's a trip hazard. Normally that's what we're looking for, is the 1 inch or greater trip hazard is what I go by, and and then it comes down to, some of it is, the squeaky wheel. If they've been complaining long enough,
Yep.
we.
And that's the personal piece I want to get to, right? Because
Right.
I think anecdotes here are actually going to drive it more than data. I think the data is simply going to be, this is the KPI on the back end, and this is what we're going to use as our standard moving forward. But the anecdote, I think, is what's going to, at least I hope, drive the council policy decision, you, Mr. Stevens. So Wilson, right now today, I call you, you come out, you check my sidewalk. If you are not going to action it, do you communicate that with the person that put the request in the portal? Is it just simply, hey, we're not actioning it? What does that look like?
Well, I would talk to them directly and
Okay.
say, because if you don't tell them anything, they're just gonna, if they called me directly or if they go through the portal, their next thing is gonna be to call one of you or call the mayor or
Yep,
call
understood.
Stevens. So I always try to contact them myself
Good.
and say, here's what we're doing and here's why, or here's not what we're doing
Yep.
and here's why.
And then this is the final piece to that question, which is just rough estimate, right? Doesn't have to be exact, 10%, 50%, 100%. How many of the requests that go through the citizen portal for sidewalks that you show up to and say, no, I'm not going to address it?
We haven't had any yet that I've
So-
showed up to that.
So this gets directly to the metrics that I'm talking about that I think we already have. And I think you know where I'm going with this, which is we've addressed 100% of the concerns in the portal. We have a line on the budget for $80,000. Our budget has been strong. We're considered a financially strong town. Do we know? I mean, we do know what the expenditure is on the back end. So for the last 5 years, can we pull that information and see this is what we expect to spend? We've addressed 100% of citizens' requests when it comes to sidewalks, and this is what we should, kind of see moving forward based off of either the percent increase or decrease to that.
We certainly could. I think the one concern I would have that we might create a gap is if we don't do the survey, which we're going to do.
Yeah, and I'm not
Right.
recommending that at
But
all.
if we only did that to budget buy, we're going to miss things, especially like the ADA compliance, the ramps.
Sure.
And the
Yep.
race services. So those are not being accounted for now anywhere in our budget.
Understood, but they're also not accounted for if we went with policy one, which is the homeowner owns it anyway. No matter what happens here, the way that I understand this, let me know where I go wrong, is no matter what, we're going to have to do this survey to ensure that town-owned sidewalks, regardless of what we do with those that are adjacent and can fall under potential homeowner sidewalks, have to be ADA compliant, meet state requirements, et cetera. And there's going to be a cost for that no matter what. The additional question, obviously, those things will fall under potentially now, if we were to adopt a policy that allows for us to take over the sidewalks, would be point two. And I think point two is already addressed, which is we kind of know what the maintenance costs are. We've been doing it for 10 years, right? Does the logic follow or no?
No, it's absolutely valid.
Okay.
And I think that's why I'm saying, I'm not worried about the budgetary piece. Okay, we'll figure that
For the
out.
record, neither am I, right? So but what I want to do for the record for the townsfolk here is let them know, okay, let's say we go with policy two, right? And we're going to get more information. We're going to have T's crossed, I's dotted. But to your point, a vote on August 11th, one way or the other, is not going to be something that incurs a major cost to the town, right? So there's not a major cost saving that comes with enacting the policy that homeowners, you now got it. And there's not going to be a 15-cent increase to the 2027 or 2028 budget because of this.
Correct. I can't see this impacting the taxes in the near term.
Yep. So this is where now we can get to the spirit of the law versus the letter of the law debate. And I think this is the philosophy argument that the five of us are going to have to decide. Councilman Sampson touched on it a little bit, but that is this service has been provided for the town for a minimum a decade. We're now debating if we're going to completely remove that service or not. That's the actual debate, right? So I understand that the code is written a specific way in which the homeowner owns that sidewalk, and I get it. And frankly, if I were on that council 10 years ago, we probably would have been having a discussion to, hey, this is the code. But unfortunately, spirit of law now comes into place, which is, well, we provide the service. This is the way that operations have run. Are we now going to suddenly strip this away from the town because a code's written this way and was never enforced? And that's the debate that we have to have here. And if we're going to do that, just understand the precedent it sets, that if there's any other service that we're potentially providing that the code or charter or rules of procedure, bylaws, et cetera, speak against, that we could be potentially liable to stopping what we've been doing and what we've been advancing to follow that actual letter. So that's just the thought that I have there. Again, August 11th, we'll make our votes, it sounds like, known one way or the other to give you direction. But because, based off of the information provided today, it's not a major economic impact. In fact, it's been in at least the last 10 budgets. The town has addressed 100% of the maintenance for sidewalk issues that residents have. We have line item budget areas to already address, and the ADA compliance, et cetera, is a separate piece that has to happen regardless of what we do with this policy. I think we conduct status quo in that what we are currently operating is the policy I would promote. So I think that the town, frankly, should take ownership of the sidewalks closer to what you presented here with the second policy, and maybe a little bit of a hybrid of what Councilman Sampson talked about.
Thank you.
If I may, real quick, just don't mind, Mayor. I wanted to clarify one thing. I haven't denied any, but the ones that have come before me were already kind of pre-approved before I got here. And it didn't want to go back to that person and say, by that criteria, at least two of them wouldn't have met it. And I would have said to that person, if I'd have been the one that got the initial call, this doesn't meet the criteria. We'll probably come out and maybe grind it down a little bit. So because it was only like a half inch and one, which was out on Heritage Green Parkway there, where it actually dropped, was one that we had to actually fix that had to come up. The other thing I wanted to say, when you were talking about if we mess up a sidewalk for a water line, a stormwater line or anything like that, that if we do the damage to it, we fix it.
Correct.
No matter, it doesn't matter whose it is, we actually fix that just because we're the ones who tore it up.
Oh, just to clarify.
Yeah.
I wasn't talking about you all.
No, I know.
I was
If
just-
somebody else messes up, that's on,
I was talking about
Yeah.
like a natural, like I'll just use the example I had.
Yeah.
When I was living in St. Louis, the sidewalk was ours if it was adjacent. I had a water pipe underneath, the water pipe cracked, which cracked the sidewalk. So I went to the county said, you have to fix it. You see what I'm saying? So it was
Right.
nobody's fault.
Whose water pipe was it?
The pipe went under my house, underneath the sidewalk,
Uh-huh.
but since it was underneath the sidewalk, they said the sidewalk is yours.
Yeah.
So it's your, that's what I was referring to. So I just wanted to be,
If it had been, if it
Clear.
was our water pipe, we'd fix it. If it was your water pipe, then
Yes.
you'd still have to fix it.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And Wilson, I want to say thank you for the comments at the front end where I understand that there was a person in a position before you that agreed to maybe doing some of the maintenance.
Yeah.
But I think that strengthens the financial and economic argument, which is we are actually approving and doing projects that don't even meet the requirements that we're about to put on the books, and the budget still sustains it. So thank you.
So yeah, this is a really interesting issue, and it's, it's not, a clear one way or the other. One of the things I went and looked at when you brought this to us, and I really appreciate you elevating this like this, is that, there's a reason why the ordinance is written the way it is. And by the way, we haven't mentioned it yet, but it's also in the charter. It's in chapter 10 of the charter. It talks about sidewalks. And it is very common in Maryland municipal government for it to be done exactly the way it's done in code today in La Plata. And I believe, and this is a question though, I believe the reason for that is linked to liability for accidents that could occur on sidewalks at someone's house. And so my question is, I would like to understand what the municipal liability is when between those two policies. So obviously in a policy where homeowner makes the repairs, the homeowner is responsible for looking at and seeing, or property owner, right, is responsible for seeing those things and identifying them and mitigating them. In the second policy, it would now become the town's duty to do that. And I think therefore also it would become, instead of the residents having to be relied on to elevate broken or safety issues to be fixed, it would be the town's responsibility to do that. And so I think that part of this estimate would potentially be, just as we survey roads for condition and identifying where repairs are needed, we would have to now survey sidewalks and the labor and machinery or whatever that it takes to do that. And the implications of keeping up with it and all that comes with that, I think, are important things to consider in this. So the other thing I've started to look at with this is I do wonder what the prevalence of it is. And it sounds like we just kind of don't have a number of how prevalent it's been and how much it's cost. But I hear you that, it's been relatively, not to the level of cost that it's like even come up on someone's radar that was happening. So, however, I think that I would really like to see a well-done analysis of this, because we don't know if this is a low-cost thing when we get down to it at the end of the day. And the difference between La Plata 20 years ago and La Plata today is that we have significantly more development with significantly, in all the new neighborhoods that have gone in, most of them have sidewalks, and currently everything else that's going in hereafter by code will have sidewalks. And so that has a much bigger tail in maintenance than what traditionally the town has experienced over time, right? So even though our past experience is one thing, that doesn't guarantee what we're going to be looking at. So to me, it's really important, the amount of detail that you can drive into this assessment. I also think that there's some interesting areas that I looked at just from looking at the maps, like Glen Albin Road is an interesting spot. If you look at it, you have sidewalks that are abutting properties. However, those neighborhoods aren't on Glen Albin Road, but there's multiple houses all along it that their backyard backs up against it. And I think by code, those homeowners would be surprised to hear that by code, they would be responsible for fixing a sidewalk on a street they don't live on. And so I do think we should, take an opportunity to address things like that and make that more clear. There's the underpass for the railroad tracks. There's other interesting spots. If we put a new sidewalk down Oak Ave towards the new library, if it goes on the side that the railroad tracks are, I mean, is the railroad paying for a sidewalk? I really doubt it, right? Like they're not even going to answer the phone when we call. So I think that, you know, there's edge cases when we do a townwide survey and I know like the policies when I went through them, like you address a whole bunch of them, right? Like my house, I have a sidewalk, but it's a lead, right? It just goes from my steps to it, but it crosses the public right of way. Very clearly not in the policy, right? So I get that. But I think there's still some edge cases potentially that aren't addressed there. Then maybe the last area that I think was interesting in just going and looking at what some other municipalities have done related to this issue. So there are some in between areas in this in the following way. I do think though that the town needs whatever policy we come up with, it has to be durable. Like it can't be revocable. If you know, we've talked in the past, right? Like government is slow to move. Well, and that's annoying sometimes, but it has great benefits too. When you can count on either they are or aren't going to do something, that needs to endure over decades. And so as a homeowner, I don't want to hear that, you know, you're paying for sidewalk repairs now, but if things get dark, then maybe all bets are off and the town's not going to be there for you. I think we have to be more dependable in our policy than that. A couple of other municipalities have done some interesting things in Maryland. Easton, Maryland has a share program that's effectively what they do. So they don't take on the liability of the ownership of the sidewalk or the ownership of the repair, but they will pay for 40% of the repair. It's still the resident's responsibility, but they pay a 40% pair. And I'm not sure if it's Easton, but there's other examples where they also allow for the municipality, because it has public works contracts for things like concrete. We talked about piggyback contracts earlier today that the town benefits from. Wouldn't it be great to help our residents by allowing them to benefit off the contracts we have for those things? And I could see us, you know, again, letting residents elevate these repair needs to us. That is self-surveying, right? And that is good citizenry as far as I'm concerned. That's people participating, letting the town know that there's a repair. That saves us on having to do those surveys over and over again. But it gets things on our radar so we can evaluate them for whether they meet the standard for a repair or not. And then we can help by grouping or batching repairs, coming out and just doing a group of them in the same week, that kind of stuff. And there's other examples out there with you know, that municipalities use as well for where they do targeted taxes for just the properties that are around the major sidewalk repair areas. And one of the things that they'll do is they'll make it part of a interest-free 5 years part of your tax payback, right? So it's a way that the town can participate in the repair that benefits the resident, but it falls short of 100% us taking it on. I'm not advocating for any one of these. I'm just saying that these are things that are out there in Maryland specifically that are done across the board to kind of nuance through this. And I think based on the size of the cost of what you show us would shape how I would want to what I would want to do to sort of find a hybrid approach potentially, or a cost sharing mechanism, maybe is a better word for it. You know, at a certain threshold, maybe it's not worth it to build all that additional kind of mechanism, and we just take it over and do that as a tax supported service. But I think for me, the most important part of assessing this is really seeing what you all come up with the forecast of how much this will cost, really.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Well, the last 10 years, I think it has been from inception of this code that we were a small town. So the neighbors know they are responsible for shoveling the sidewalks, and that they are responsible for the weeds, whether it be the HOAs or the owner. But we have what's called here is the cafeteria code. We pick and choose what we enforce. And that goes throughout the code. And this is one of them. 2 out of the 3 things under 170-16 clearly states about snow removal and about the weeds. And then it does about structural, it says the structural repairs. So I'm going to give you a hypothetical. Sally Smith's has done all the snow removal, has done all the weeds, and there is a crack that is dangerous there. And Sally decides she's going to do what has happened throughout the town is we put cones on either side, because if she is responsible for that sidewalk, it now becomes a liability, and she doesn't want anybody going on to that sidewalk. How long can the cone stay there until she repairs it? She repairs it, she doesn't have the funding that my colleague here might have to fix a sidewalk. So she does her best. She goes, gets a bag of concrete from Lowe's and fixes it to the best of her ability. Does it match what the town has? There are so many variables that come with this. And I am not pro or con on this right now. I am just bringing up scenarios. ADA, we are required to have ADA sidewalks throughout. So if it falls on my property, which one does, and that chips up, how am I making sure that that is in compliance? Do I have to repair it with the same materials that were there previously? You have HOAs that do a pretty darn good job of telling their residents that they are in violation, but it has never been on structural. You've got our 3 age-restricted communities that already hire out for the snow removal as well as the weeds, and they're paying a good price on that. You've got Hawthorne Green that's paying an average of $190 a month for their HOAs. You've got Washington Square that's about $150 a month. And then you have the Maples, it's $400 a year that they are paying. But this is for the sidewalks to be accessible to the residents in there. What we need to look at is holistically. And what about the sidewalks that are no man's land, like on Rosewick and on Washington, that we don't own these streets, and on Charles Street? Our partners aren't even good at adhering to code 170-16. We've got weeds everywhere. So when there are structural repairs that are needed to be made, do they jump in? And what is the timeline? And then the other thing is the equity. We have at least one subdivision that is primarily renters. And I know when you are a landlord, you're responsible for everything. But a lot of the times the landlords are good at picking up their checks and may not be aware of their surroundings, of what's going on there. So how do we hold the renter accountable when it's the owner, and how do we get to the owner? So these are questions that I think we really need to dig in deep on that. If it's in code, we can change the code, right? So we can change the code, we can stick to the code. That's what policy is about. So on August 11th, we're going to have a very robust conversation. But for me, what I would like to see is the survey. I really don't know how many miles we're talking about, or how big of a project is this. And my other question is, I know the town since inception has had to be sued over a sidewalk, someone tripping. Who got the lawsuit? Was it the town, or was it the resident that it fell right in front? So we have been picking and choosing and not adhering to the code. That is one of the things that we have to look at. If someone trips and falls in front of my house, are they suing me? Per the code, they're suing me. Can I stick cones up so no one goes on my sidewalk because I'm responsible for it? So that's an extreme, but it is a possibility. So with that, I really don't have questions, just comments on.
Madam Mayor, there is, you did ask a question that I can't answer in the moment, so I'm
Okay.
going to go ahead and do that. The others I've jotted down. So with regard to a resident performing, even if the responsibility is on the resident, the town code, section 170-14
be
states
period.
that no person or utility company may cut, alter, or disturb any sidewalk or curb in the public right of way without first obtaining a permit from the town. And the following requirements will apply to all utility work. So we still control the standards. So even though the town in one part of the code is going to say it's your responsibility, it doesn't give a resident carte blanche to go out there and create their own type of sidewalk and do repairs. They're still going to have to come into town hall, get a permit, and we will still inspect and make sure that the sidewalk meets the code and meets the ADA standards.
Yeah, and
Councilman Sampson.
Just a quick follow-up question. Mr. Stevens, and you may not be able to answer this, but if we change the code and the resident's response, what happens if the resident just can't pay? They don't have the money. What do we do then? Like if they can't pay and they won't be able to pay anytime in the future?
Right, so the process for that would be something like the following, and we would want to get Todd in here, the town attorney, to really walk us through this. But we would issue the citation to the resident. The work's not performed in a timely manner, the town would go in and perform the work because we want to make sure that the sidewalk is safe first and foremost. So the town would do that. We would send the bill to the resident. They would either pay it or not. We could work with them to try and get a repayment plan if they chose not to pay it. Ultimately, we could put a lien on the property. That would be the end state after. We would try everything to avoid that, but that would be process-wise where the town could go is we could put a lien on the property, so there would be a cloud on the title. If and when that property ever wanted to sell, they would have to resolve that first.
Councilman Johnson.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think this is a very robust conversation. Like Councilman Gutenberg said, it's not only code, it's charter. And to what you said, yes, like subsection D covers the town will ultimately be responsible for the work at the payment or at the lien of the property owner. Just about the comment about, the town picking and choosing what codes to enforce in general, I think there needs to be a standard. Like if the legislative body passed a code, that's what we follow, right? And obviously there's always going to be stuff that comes up and look in the rearview mirror to adjust, adapt, and be agile to whatever environment we're in. I think that's the perfect moment right now. We're having a discussion on whatever we think that environment is going to be and how we want to proceed. But I think that the common practice should be, and not saying that we're not practicing that today, is if it's in code, we follow it. It's simple. It's the law. So.
Right, well, that's exactly the tension. So this town brought me in and, I get these complaints and the first thing I do is look at the code and I want to apply the code. In this case, that's not what the town has been doing. And believe me, I thought about just telling people, hey, town code says you're responsible, but boy, the backlash I would have gotten and you would have gotten, our residents deserve this conversation in a public forum. This dialogue has been wonderful. I hope that people can listen to this. We'll come back on the 11th. We'll get you some more answers based on this conversation. But ultimately, I want to do exactly that. So, I mean, for me, a desirable outcome is no matter what's decided, I want to make sure that we either change the code or not, so that I am doing what is in the code. When someone calls me, I can say, go online, open our code, here's what it says, this is what I'm going to apply, so that we all have a shared understanding of where the town, me, is coming from when I'm on the other end of that phone with an angry resident who wants a sidewalk repaired.
Thank
I
you.
do have a follow-up on that. So you mentioned that we would have to get a permit to fix our sidewalk, right? Which, okay, that's going to be interesting to try to get residents to understand that, but why wouldn't we let the town fix it and just bill us?
that's certainly an option. And I think that's what Counselor Gutenberg was getting to as well, and leverage a contract. We can probably do it faster and less expensive.
And
Um,
the standard.
And that would, and assured it would be built to standards. I think that's absolutely an option we could do. And I think that's an option we could offer to residents if we get that far.
Right, because otherwise it will be like trying to pull teeth. How are you going to get people to do that? And what is the time limit when it's identified, and who identifies it? So there's so many unanswered questions. And thank you for having the standards in there. You know, when people just think it's an ugly sidewalk and they want the town to fix it, well, it's still functioning. It's kind of like a car that has a really bad paint job. It still functions. The sidewalks still function. It may not be pretty, but when it becomes structurally unsound, that is where that needs to be addressed. So, all right.
Thank you.
Sorry. Go ahead, Councilman Cormac.
Yeah, so there was a council member, I can't remember who, so I apologize for not giving you credit by name, but there was a council member that talked about future developments, right? So La Plata today is not the same as La Plata, or La Plata today is not the same as La Plata in the past. And unfortunately, with annexations and future development on the book, La Plata in the future is not going to look like La Plata today. Okay. With the future developments, there are sidewalks that are going into a majority of those places. Pine Grove kind of being the newest, hottest item. I live in subsection O. There's a sidewalk issue happening right now, but that development is not under the jurisdiction of the town, meaning it has not been dedicated over. Now, there's an internal strife between a homeowner and the HOA/developer on a sidewalk issue that meets the requirement of, 1 inch of depth, sidewalk falling down, all that. Okay. That development has told the residents there that they are still going to move forward with dedication to the town, and it's up to the resident to fix that. Okay. Does something like this, coupled with our adequate public facilities ordinance, give us teeth to go back to developers and say, before dedication, assuming we take over the maintenance of sidewalks, that we're now going to have pristine, upstanding things that, to Councilman Gutenberg's point, the tail we're actually elongating because we're now the source of truth on if this sidewalk works or not?
Sure. So a developer can come forward and say, I'm ready to dedicate a road, sidewalk, curb and gutter. We're going to inspect it.
Of course.
And we're not taking on something that's substandard.
Yeah.
Period.
So, but here's the logic, right? And just let me know where the logic goes right or wrong. I'm not saying this is how it's implied, but the logic today is status quo. We do not own the sidewalks, right? The maintenance is owned by the homeowners unless it's a general area that doesn't fall within a certain amount of feet of the property line and all that. With that logic, it would stand to reason that the developer would be able to push forward sidewalks that may not meet a required code if the town were to own it. Does that make sense from a logical standpoint?
I'm not exactly following you.
Okay, so we have to own roads. The APFO puts roads up to a certain criteria, right? So you have to be a certain criteria for the dedication of a development plan to go through, get built, be developed, and all that. Would passing a policy giving ownership of these sidewalks to the town be coupled with that type of language, similar to what we have for the roads moving forward with future development?
Okay, I think I understand what you're saying. So I'm processing here. So give me
No, you're good. And I might even have a simpler way to ask it. We have an APFO for sewer, for roads, for school seating. Do we have to have a new section for sidewalks?
Well, no, and that's where I'm trying to develop an answer. So
Yep.
the APFO addresses development. It doesn't, nowhere in any of the APO zoning. So
Got it.
we say
Yep.
APFO, right? But
Mhm.
there are actually changes to our zoning ordinance.
Correct.
Okay, which we're going to take action on here in a few minutes tonight.
Yep.
Okay, so that addresses development. Nowhere in that zoning language does it talk about the standards it has to meet for dedication.
Understood.
Okay, so there are certain engineering standards, like the road has to be level and the manhole covers have to be flush with the surface.
Yep.
And all of these things before the town will accept it. Those are not captured anywhere in the APFO.
Correct.
And so, and I don't know if they're captured in our code. I'll have to find that. So, and this goes to a bigger issue about road dedication process.
Correct.
So what I'm hearing from this and what I'm going to take away from this is as we go through the road dedication process, and we have an internal team that's been meeting on that, we need to make sure that, and we are, but we'll make sure now and double check that we're also including sidewalk standards, curb, gutter, sidewalk, road, all inclusive when a developer comes forward and wants to say, okay, I'm ready to hand this off to you, town. Now you own it, take responsibility.
Correct. Yep. And the reason I'm asking that is for the clarity piece, right? So I appreciate the context there. I think that makes sense. I hope folks listening through understand the difference between the two. So thank you.
All right, and I would encourage our residents, please write in or email or come in and let us know your thoughts, especially those who are watching maybe at a later time, but let us know your thoughts because you are the residents and we work for you. So we want to represent you in the best way. All right, going on to 5.3, Public Works Department position reclassification.
All right, and Monica's going to join us. Wilson's going to stay at the seat. So, by way of background, Public Works crew leader position is currently vacant. As part of the town's ongoing organizational restructuring, including the creation of the new engineering department, the Director of Public Works has evaluated departmental staffing needs and determined that reclassifying this vacant position will better align staffing with current operational priorities. An existing Public Works employee who currently performs essential administrative functions will soon transfer to the engineering department as part of this restructuring. To maintain continuity of administrative support and ensure smooth service delivery within Public Works, the director recommends reclassifying the vacant crew leader position to an office coordinator role. The fiscal impact. There would be no fiscal impact associated with this reclassification. The office coordinator position will remain within the same pay grade classification as the crew leader position and is fully funded within the current budget. However, with this change, a reassignment may be needed at fiscal year end due to the fund allocation of the crew leader position differing from the office coordinator position. Strategic plan alignment. Operational excellence. This reclassification supports the town's commitment to operational excellence by aligning staffing with department needs and ensuring consistent administrative capacity within Public Works. This also keeps tasks aligned within the appropriate department. Your sustainability considerations and your ADA considerations are in your packet. And the recommended action for you this evening is to adopt ordinance 26-16, the amendment to the Town of La Plata fiscal year 2027 financial plan / budget, reclassification of position, authorizing the reclassification of the position of crew leader to office coordinator. And I'm joined by Monica Kennedy and Wilson Cochran as the director to answer any questions that council may have.
All right, thank you very much. I'll open up the floor. Councilman Gutenberg, any questions?
No, the statements were clear. I understand the staff report, and I think ultimately, no one better than you to know what you need to do with reclassifying to take care of those kind of operational needs. I think it's good that you're bringing it to us so that we understand as we may have to make a move at the end of the year just to keep things all situated correctly in the budget. So I think this is all goodness. Thank you.
Councilman McCormick?
Yeah, I'll echo those comments. An adjacent question to this for you, Mr. Stevens. So the council approved a study for, I guess you would say, like hierarchical structuring and pay. And forgive me, I think it's Bolton, might be Baker Tilly.
That's correct.
Is it Bolton? Okay. Do we want to wait for them or do we want to act on this now?
We are requesting act on this now. The Bolton study, we had the kickoff meeting this past Friday. That study is going to be complete in December.
Okay, so too long.
So
Okay.
we think it's too long. We think the need is now and the gap is going to be now. And then we also want to make sure that as the departing employee transition over to engineering, if we can get someone hired, there would be a period of overlap for training. So we're asking to go now and not wait on the what we will refer to as the Bolton study,
Yep.
which is way more than a compensation study because it is gonna
Understood.
be-
It's organizational
it's-
structuring and
it's
all that.
Very, very deep.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Councilman Sampson?
No questions.
Councilman Johnson?
No questions.
All right, and I have no questions either. So I'm looking for a consensus to move this forward to legislation. Councilman Gutenberg?
Yes.
Councilman McCormick?
Yes.
Councilman Sampson?
Yes.
Councilman Johnson?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. All right, next on the agenda is, and thank you both very much, appreciate it. Next on the agenda is Serious About Safety Local Leaders Cohort.
Council, on July 16th, I received correspondence prior to July 16th, but on July 16th, I met with Mr. Vin White. He's a senior advisor for policy and innovation in the Secretary's Office of the Maryland Department of Transportation regarding a new initiative titled the Serious About Safety Safer Maryland Coalition Local Leaders Cohort. The cohort is co-convened by the Lieutenant Governor and the MDOT Secretary as part of MDOT's broader Serious About Safety initiative, which supports the Maryland's Vision Zero law. That law, established in 2019, sets a goal of 0 vehicle-related deaths or serious injuries on state roadways by 2030 and directs a state coordinator to work with state agencies and local authorities toward that goal. The cohort is designed to convene a limited group of approximately 15 local elected officials from municipalities, counties, and state agencies for a series of meetings running from approximately September 26th through February 27. The stated purpose is to build shared understanding of roadway safety needs, review examples of effective safety measures from other jurisdictions, and support participating officials in identifying and advancing roadway safety actions in their own communities. I also asked during my meeting with Mr. White, right now they are not planning on virtual attendance, though they are considering it, and that may change. But right now that they are planning for in-person meetings to be held during banker's hours, basically Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. They may provide a virtual option, but the meetings themselves are probably still going to fall within the Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 window. MDOT extended this invitation specifically to the mayor of the town of La Plata. Staff advised MDOT at the time of the meeting that any town representative would first need the support and endorsement of the town council. This item is brought to council for that purpose, to discuss the invitation and, should council wish to participate, to identify which elected official will represent the town of La Plata in the cohort. Fiscal impact. No fiscal impact has been identified based on the materials provided by MDOT to date. No registration fee or financial contribution is referenced in connection with participation. If travel or incidental costs arise from attending the cohort meetings, those would be addressed through existing budget lines for the mayor, council mayor travel and professional engagement. And right now, I believe the meetings are planned to take place in Annapolis. Strategic plan alignment. This item relates to Goal 5, Public Service Readiness, which calls for planning and developing systems and infrastructure that support health, safety, and wellness of residents. It also touches Goal 1, Good Governance, insofar as the town's engagement with state agencies and regional safety planning reflects responsible stewardship of community trust and coordination with other levels of government. The sustainability and ADA considerations in your packet. And your recommended action this evening is this item is presented for discussion only. No formal action is requested beyond just a conversation amongst yourselves and deciding who, if council wants someone to participate, and if so, who that would be. And I'll try to answer a question, but I think you know as much as I do at this point.
All right, thank you very much. I'll open up the floor. Councilman Lugar?
Yes. So yeah, I think this is a really good opportunity for us. I think no one will be surprised to hear me say that, I think we absolutely should participate in this. I think, if through the work we did on the APFO for roads in particular, we had a lot of conversations about the need for La Plata to communicate in intergovernmental communications and just initiatives. And I think this is one of those. I talked about, potential for us, and I hope we talk about this in September at our goals retreat about, COG membership, because it brings with it additional things just like this, where we would be able to have representatives at the table and, bringing things back to the town, but importantly, building relationships and being able to plug into opportunities that allow us to bring value to the residents here where we live in La Plata. So, I'm looking forward to us, agreeing. I assume we'll all want to do this. This is it's just a good opportunity for us. I don't think it has to be the mayor. I just think it should be a member of the council. I do think that we should participate, and any one of us 5, I think, could do it, as long as we make the time commitment.
Councilman McCormick?
Yeah, thank you. I'll echo those comments on kind of point for recommended action number one, which is obviously I support this. The question is going to be who represents the town. So once somebody asks for a nomination or is nominated, then we'll make that decision there. But thank you for bringing this to us. Thanks for taking that meeting. And again, I think the scaffolding and partnership, right? The building upon things that are happening, foundational level, what La Plata Town Council can control ourselves. What do we need those government partners to help us with? How can we reach out to the state? How can we join these bigger bodies? Is something that is just going to lead us into a better and brighter future, right? So again, I think we've done a great job with reserve fund policies being specifically utilized for pedestrian safety, right? Especially near those roads. To Councilman Gutenberg's point, the Planning Commission himself personally, and then this council pushing through the APFO and really making sure that that's a durable document, going through the legal review there, the proper channels to get the townsfolk involved. I know that was a major talking point during the election. These are the right actions to take. So thank you for bringing this forward, and I look forward to supporting us joining this and figuring out who our rep is going to be.
Councilman Sampson?
No comment.
Councilman Johnson?
Yeah, thank you. Not to echo on what was already said. I appreciate you bringing this forward. I think I had a conversation back in April when we was doing rule of procedures about, when members of the council join these intergovernmental or regional boards, who is the deciding factor. So I appreciate you bringing this to us. Absolutely. Anytime we can participate at a broader level in governance, I appreciate that. And number two, I would like to nominate Councilman Gutenberg to represent us on this board, just from his the work he's done around APFO and really being in tune to planning and pedestrian safety in town. That would be my suggestion if he is willing to have the time to do it.
And thank you for that nomination. I'm going to hold off on that while I have my comments. So I have been, since the inception in 2019, I've been working with the state on this. And I have actually presented statewide on this. And to have a by name request by the Secretary of MDOT, it's a huge, it speaks volumes to my participation and how I have represented the town in this coalition of Safer Maryland. So while I hear Councilman Johnson, who didn't let all of us speak yet, jump in there and nominate someone. I think it is when you do have a by name request, and I know three of my council members have served in the military, that is a huge honor. And to have the Secretary of MDOT have somebody else represent who hasn't been involved with this, but 1 year on that, I don't think that they're looking for novices. I think they're looking for the 15 people across the state. And they've identified a very strong person in myself, and that I have been there and walked this walk the whole way. But if it is the will of the council, then we go with that. But I do not think that looks favorably upon the town of La Plata to go against the wishes of the Secretary of MDOT. So, Councilman, yes, Councilman Sampson.
Quick question, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Stevens. More than one person can go, right? Or is it?
I think,
That's what my
I'm
original
not
understanding
trying to
was.
do that. Yeah.
I think it's a single representative from the
Okay.
town.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I actually think it's healthy to have a discussion about representation, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's nothing derogatory about having a conversation between nominating, two different members to go to this. And so, in that vein, what I'll say to you is, the novice comment I think is out of place in the following way. I would offer my record on what I've done with the Planning Commission and other initiatives that I have gained your all's support on related to the funding for pedestrian safety with the speed cameras, those kinds of things. So there's a number of things that I can point to say that in my short time have achieved a lot. And so while I may be a year into doing this kind of role, I have quite a long career of like getting stuff done. And that's really my background, is as a project manager. I go in and I tackle things, and I think the body of work that I've done in the time I've been here earns me something better than the moniker of novice. So there's been good accomplishment, and to that comparison, right? As a point to compare, you've been engaged, Madam Mayor, since 2019 with this group. So let's hear what are the specific things that came back. What were the benefits to La Plata that we can talk about? Because I'm open to those.
Oh, absolutely. We have the bike path that has come down, the safer roads. The presentation in that we have now the state that is doing Route 6. And I have been, well, we ended up getting the funding for that in 2020 with the help of then State Senator Mac Middleton. And please don't take exception. Novice was not derogatory at all. You have a year and change, and you have been very impactful during that time. I have just been with them since 2019 and have served, have been asked, and I have presented for the coalition. So it's nothing. You have done an amazing work, but they also know what I have brought to them with the bike path that we did, the $11.7 million that we secured in 2020 for the state project. That was going up saying about safer streets. So that's where I think the name recognition comes in, because I have been a constant with that. So please do not take any offense to the word novice. It is a year. It's not that you are just new to that. Are we okay over there?
I am perfectly fine.
Thank you.
I am perfectly fine. Thank you.
Decorum, please. It is not that it is an insult. It is just a word meaning that you've only been here a year and a couple months.
Yeah, I didn't take it as an insult, but as a point of comparison, then that's why I wanted to, it just offered me the opportunity to kind of lay those things out for
Absolutely.
consideration. So, with some of those, the securing funding for the Route 6 project, the town has not secured funding for the Route 6 project. The state is doing that to a state road. That's not to say that there's not, I think that overstates it a little bit is all. The county is involved, and this is kind of my point, is like this has been the things that are going on with Route 6 and with the bike path are examples of the county and the state and the town working together, right? And so in that way, I do think it is good, but we certainly weren't the driver, right? But we were at the table. I agree.
No, we were.
Yeah.
The origin of the state project was State Senator Mac Middleton as going up to the state and saying you need to pay attention to La Plata. And that's how it came to us. And it wasn't the county that was involved with that at all. And the same with the bike path. It was a grant that was done. Now we do have partners, but the origin was not that.
Okay, understood.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so two questions, one for you, Councilman Gutenberg, and the one for you, Mr. Stevens. Sorry, I didn't hear it. I'm assuming based off your comments, are you interested in the nomination that Councilman Johnson gave?
I am actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I am, and the reason is really, as I stated before, the things that I've done leading up to this point, it has made me very inspired to continue pushing those things forward, and I think that those kinds of partnerships will result in more things coming to us, and I see plenty of reason on the Planning Commission actively engaged there, and I'm hoping to bring things back from events like this into modifications to zoning code, which, when we talk about the way the town is laid out or the way development happens and there's dissatisfaction with it. And the only thing I know for sure is if we don't change code, we will continue to have the
Yep.
exact same results we have. And so while I think it has been very interesting understanding and coming to learn how all of this works as a municipality and the way we have to plug into those things. And what I think that means is if we want change, we have to enact change. And
Agreed.
that, you know, when I say we focus, we get stuff done, you know, that's what I continue to see. And that's what I want to continue to do.
No, thank you. And to be clear, yes, is the answer to that question. Mr. Stevens, for you, sir. So going about so I see here, it's like regarding a new initiative titled Serious About Safety, Safer Maryland Coalition Local Leaders Cohort. Is this a sub cohort that's new? It seems to me reading this is brand new. So why does it matter even if we're going to use the term novice? Well, first let me ask the question. Is this new? The report says it's new.
I do not have an answer for that.
Okay.
I don't know.
And again, the language just for everybody at home that maybe isn't reading along is, quote, regarding a new initiative titled The Serious About Safety, Safer Maryland Coalition Local Leaders Court. So again, I was going to make these comments. I'm glad you did. I think the person that directly works with the Planning Commission makes the most organic sense, right? So that's why I was talking about earlier during my comments. Like, I agree with this. This makes a lot of sense to me. La Plata has got to join, in my opinion. The question is, who's the best rep for it? And I think the best rep for it is the person that has been, deep into the actual language, charter amendments, code changes, already showing the ability to work intergovernmentally here in the municipality, partner with county, partner with state, and frankly, get things done. And even the examples that were used by the other person that's trying to go for this nomination or asking for this nomination, everything from a question that Councilman Gutenberg asked about, like, what is the town driving? The answer was, well, our state senator at the time did these things. Again, I think it's important for La Plata not to just have a seat at the table, but to really drive that. And I do think there's a person on this council that has that record. So I'll second the nomination.
All right. It does not surprise me that it went this way because it has been the theme for the last few meetings is how can we diminish the mayor's presence. So we do have a nomination on the floor that has been properly seconded. Is there any, I guess we'll take a vote. All in favor for Councilman Gutenberg to represent this, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I would oppose that. All right, moving on to legislation. We have ordinance 2615 for second reading.
Okay, 1 second, council. Okay, legislation this evening, we have ordinance 26-15, chapter 191, the zoning ordinance for the town of La Plata, Maryland, roads, second reading for consideration of adoption. This is an ordinance concerning chapter 191, zoning ordinance for the town of La Plata, Maryland, roads, for the purpose of amending article 10 of the zoning ordinance of the town of La Plata to include processes for creating, managing, and maintaining adequate public road facilities in the town of La Plata and all matters generally relating thereto.
Thank you very much. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 2615 as presented?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion. Any opposed? Motion carries. Brings us to ordinance 26-16 amendment for first reading and introduction.
Okay, this is ordinance 26-16, amendment to the town of La Plata fiscal year 2027 financial plan / budget, reclassification of position. This is the first reading for introduction. This is an ordinance concerning amendment to the town of La Plata fiscal year 2027 financial plan / budget, reclassification of position. For the purpose of amending the town of La Plata fiscal year 2027 financial plan budget to reflect the reclassification of a position in the Public Works Department and all matters generally relating thereto.
Thank you very much. And it brings us to resolution 26-41 for consideration of adoption.
Okay, and this is resolution 26-41, board, commission, and committee bylaws for introduction and consideration of adoption. This is a resolution concerning board, commission, and committee bylaws for the purpose of establishing a unified set of governing bylaws for all town advisory boards and commissions and all matters generally relating thereto.
All right, do I have a motion to adopt Resolution 26-41 as presented?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. It brings us to town reports. Go ahead, Councilman Gutenberg.
Yes, so I know it's been a while, but we did have a meeting earlier this month, a planning commission meeting. We had public comment tonight about concern about engagement on water conservation. Good news, the planning commission has formed a subcommittee to do just that. And so there was some discussion here on council about that. And then we asked the planning commission to take that on. They have done that. They formed a working committee, and they are the purpose of the committee is to move that forward as rapidly as possible for recommendations for changes to our codes so that we can initiate some things that make sense for the town from a water conservation standpoint. I also think, in that category, another good thing that's happening is the yet to be staffed, but the new committee for oh my goodness, it's late in the night and it's escaping the name of it is the
Sustainability?
yes, the sustainability. I want to say conservation. It's the sustainability committee. And so that I think is also a place where some issues like this potentially would end up on our agenda. So I just wanted to put that out there just based on public comments. So, all right. And that's it.
All right, Councilman McCormick.
Yeah, strap in. I got a lot of comments today, so start that 10-minute timer. All right, first, July 4th, America 250. I was able to go to town hall with Councilman Johnson, and we gave away chicken dinners and all sorts of prizes to folks that won. But I really want to thank the staff. So I know Lucinda was here earlier, Mr. Stevens, Miss Miner, everybody that took part in getting those vendors here and making that a successful event on, I think it was 225 degrees that day. Thank you very much for doing that. That was awesome. I'll share some personal news here. I know the council's heard this, but just in case you haven't, my son John celebrated his second birthday, which is great and incredible. It's very rare that you get topped because my wife and I did get to welcome our second son, Lou McCormick, into the world in the middle of July. So really happy to be a father of two boys now. And mom is doing great. Everybody's doing great at home. And I want to thank all of you that gave prayers, notes, congratulations, all that stuff. Thank you very much. It means a lot to me and my wife. For the council, Historic Preservation Committee, there is an important update. So there was a break-in at the Train Museum. At this point, it was a couple of weeks ago. And the commission continues to talk about wants and needs from the council to help with repairs, getting safety training, all that type of stuff. And what I'm doing in my new role as the Historic Preservation Committee member is educating them that there is a formal process to get these things in front of the council. So I just want to let the council know that we're still going through that formal process. This break-in is incredibly important to address, obviously, but I want to make sure that we're doing it the right way that has sustained success moving into the future. July is National Parks and Rec Month. Wills Park, drove by it a couple of times now. Those updates in person, the Facebook post doesn't do it justice. Go check it out. What's coming, what's being provided to the town is absolutely incredible. So thank you to the Parks and Rec Department. Thank you to Councilman Johnson for really leading that initiative during the budget. But with this being National Parks and Rec Month, let's recognize that. National Night Out, we all had the opportunity to recognize different neighborhoods and organizations that have applied for grants and received those. So great to see that. And I do want to address one final thing. So, our rules of procedure has a very specific phrase in there, and it states that we will not assign motive to other individuals. So when we had a person come up here and give a comment and talk about the mayor, election, and water, the reason why those mayor duties are so important and they're on the future agenda is for exactly what happened tonight. We have no ability to correct the presiding officer when they violate our rules of procedure, and that is trying to address those type of issues. So you all just witnessed it. I want to thank the mayor for the example there and just strengthening the case.
I have nothing.
No comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman McCormick, for a very vague response to what just happened. But for my mayor's report, the 4th of July celebration, we did talk about that. And boy, I stayed there the whole entire time and it was hot, but boy, the residents sure did enjoy themselves. And thank you to all of the staff and volunteers and everyone who came out, especially Lucinda, who organized that. Friday night concerts. If you haven't had the opportunity to attend, please do. It is a spectacular night. We had Earth, Wind and Fire tribute band the other night that this whole area was so crowded, and it was tremendous. There are only 5 more concerts. This Friday, we have the Navy Cruisers, and they will be here for 90 minutes. And then we will conclude our concert on August 28th, and that will be with the dueling pianos. WGTS was here last Friday, and they broadcast live here. I had an opportunity to sit down with their on-air personality for quite some time, and what a delight she is. And they had a diaper drive too, and it stays within our community, and that is huge instead of going up to their hometown there. I was pleased to welcome the KB Experience with the ribbon cutting at its new location here in La Plata. They have moved down from Waldorf, and they're at 6549 Crane Highway, and they're right next to the All Cats and Dogs veterinarian. And I popped by La Tolteca to congratulate them on their 20 years and presented them with a certificate of recognition as well. Congratulations to Chief and your crowd there, your team there, for a accreditation for CALIA. And that started, many, many years ago. And this is your 3rd reaccreditation. And they nationally recognize that CALIA stands for Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. And this national recognition reflects the department's commitment to professionalism, accountability, and excellence in policing. And so thank you to your whole team for making this happen. It's not an easy thing, and it's always making sure that accountability is there. So congratulations to you. August 2nd to August 8th is National Farmers Week and National Farmers Market Week. And I tell you, we have such a fantastic farmers market, and it really has gone from zero to hero. I am out there almost every Saturday just for a little bit, and to hear the comments of the vendors and those that come down to see us, and they come from near and far. They are not just from our local area. They are coming down from Prince George's County, from St. Mary's County, from over the bridge. So congratulations to our farmers market and their entire team there, their committee. You have done an outstanding job. National Night Out, as we said, is August 4th. Our next council meeting is August 11th. And I would be remiss if I did not recognize with great sadness that we lost a member of our team. He's a retired police officer, Mark Powers, on July 18th. Mark had more than 35 years of service to our community through the Charles County Mobile Intensive Care Unit, the police department, and with Boy Scouts. I've known him for, approaching 20 years I've known him, and it is sad that we lost such a great individual. His viewing will be held on August 3rd with the funeral services on August 4th. So please keep his family, friends, and the first responders that he so honorably served with in your thoughts. And with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you for attending.